Makes me want to find my poker set and play some cards. Maverick, released in May of 1994 and directed by Richard Donner. I didn't know that. Starring Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster, and James Garner. Also starring Alfred Molina, Graham Greene, and James Coburn. Maverick had a production budget of $75 million, with a domestic take of $101 million, foreign take of $81 million, giving us a worldwide take of $183 million, for a total box office profit of $108 million. Rightio, characters. And we've got quite a cast of personalities in this one. Of course, Maverick, the handsome and clever, charming fool. He's always got a scheme, always got a plan, always got an angle. By the end of the movie, no matter what's happening, you're pretty sure he's got a backup plan for whatever's just happened to go wrong. And things go wrong a lot for Maverick in this movie. Gibson portrays him as a really nice guy. He's just a nice guy who just happens to be a con artist and a bit of a card shark. You also get the feeling he's quite often out of his depth. Even though he has a plan, it just feels like he's like 2 steps or one bad conversation away from a really bad time. It's always nice when your main character can actually carry the movie along. Then you've got your primary antagonist, Angel. He drops in and out of the movie. Not always there, but whenever he is there, he's causing trouble and definitely got a real presence to him. His depth of range and acting was unusual for your stock standard villain, so I started wondering where I've seen him before. Turns out he's Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, my favourite early Spider-Man movie. The guy's great. Yeah, I liked Angel. Definitely not your standard lifeless villain. Then you've got Annabelle, played to the full by Jodie Foster. Likeable, enjoyable, but you totally do not trust her. Good reason too. She's a gambler, she's a thief, she's a con artist. She will just steal from you because she can. Watching the way Jodie Foster delivers this character as well, she's as keen to get into the mix, get goofy, get silly, do a bit of physical comedy as anyone else in the cast. In particular, Mel Gibson, who at this stage of his career was known for this sort of character. Maverick deduces quite early on that her accent isn't real, but they never show you what her actual accent is. I kept waiting for her to drop her guard and present the real accent, but she never did, so it makes me very curious. But yes, Annabelle was very likeable. Now we have Marshall Cooper, portrayed by James Garner, one of the original Mavericks from the old TV series. I think there were 3 or 4 Mavericks in that show. A whole bunch of brothers and cousins. He provided the straight man for the other characters to work off, and he does it really, really well, but still gets to drop some of his own humour in there, a couple of clever little sequences, and some pretty fun dialogue. These 3 form your trio of heroes for the most of the movie. They're good on their own, they're good in pairs, but they're great as a triple act. Their characters bouncing and ricocheting between each other. The best laughs in this movie come from those 3. Then Joseph, love Joseph, perfectly fits this movie. The fact that this chieftain is as big a con artist and scoundrel as the rest of them was just beautiful to watch. I've seen him in so many movies, big production things, to the small daytime TV produced only for video or maybe network release. Only watch him because you're desperately bored or it's background noise. And then Graham Greene appears and everything's better. And then he goes again and you change channels. Absolute scene stealer. And then James Coburn turns up as the Commodore. He's always a value add to any movie he's in. And this one, just the same. I think it's his voice and just the way he carries himself and the way he presents himself. Just rolls in with this beautiful charm. He's definitely in his element for this movie though, because the 2 of the actors' real passions in life were cigars and playing cards. And he plays a lot of cards and he's always got a cigar with him in this one. Here's a fun little fact. Did you know that James Coburn actually trained and traveled around with Bruce Lee? Apparently the 2 got along really well. They knew each other for years. He was actually a pallbearer at Bruce Lee's funeral. But all throughout the movie, and in particular the final poker match, you keep spotting all these other actors, mainly TV actors. But there's all these faces in the crowd, at the table, in the background, and you're recognizing them, and you can't quite remember the name, but then they're gone again. And it's really cool going celebrity hunting in this movie. I get the feeling it's one of those movies where nearly everyone knew everyone and they just kept calling up their mates or recommending their friends to come in and have a bit part. It also had Danny Glover turn up in an extended cameo, because you just can't have Riggs without Murtaugh. It's just a fact. So for characters, this is an easy 3.5. Good value all the way through. Story. Okay, Starts simple enough. It's a man who needs money for a poker tournament. It's Maverick bouncing from mistake to mischance to unfortunate event and having to survive each and every one of them with his wits, with a friend, and with a con. Actually, sometimes the story really does feel like it's just a bunch of skits or random scenarios or stitched together. But that's just how a lot of these sorts of movies feel anyway, so doesn't really matter, still works well. This movie wastes very little time getting to the card table. We get to meet three of the mains, being Maverick, Annabelle, and Angel, and learn about their personality types and their role in the movie very quickly. Neat, tidy, and entertaining. You got a very clever runaway carriage sequence, nicely set up. It's got some fun and classic Western stunt work and tricks. Climbing over the carriage, climbing under the carriage, going across the horses, coming towards a cliff face, coming to a sliding halt. Brilliant. Cliche? Yeah. But a good one. Midnight raid on an outlaw camp. What's more Western than that? And what's more fun than for three heroes sitting in the bushes, bickering, arguing, and carrying on at each other in aggravated whispers the whole time? Felt very Lethal Weapon at that point, particularly Lethal Weapon 2. That's not a bad comparison. Well, not entirely bad comparison. And then, of course, because we're running down the Western movie checklist, we have the Indians turn up with the Maverick twist. Graham Greene! Which takes us back to the Indian camp and a lot of fun dialogue there. The writers managed to fit as many white people are a pain in the ass jokes as they possibly can into these sequences, and they're all good. But everything in the Indian camp, that's a horrible sentence. Everything in the camp comes together very well, feels very natural, but at the same time put on and forced because it's meant to, as you'll see if you watch the movie. Within that setting, you have another setting involving a Russian duke on his international holiday. Stereotype plus plus, but fun to watch and comes back later in the movie. The movie continues along and then shows us how Maverick got into the situation at the very start of the movie, pretty much folding back on itself perfectly. All of this leading to the grand poker tournament on the river, with the Russian Duke coming back into the movie just long enough to provide the heroes with the means to actually pay their way into the tournament itself. Fits like a puzzle. The poker tourney is a blast. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's very energetic and vibrant. It gives a real feeling of energy and excitement to the scene. Now, I've played a lot of poker, and it is an exciting game, but not normally an exciting game to watch, unless you're really heavily into it. But they pulled it off. They devised a way to make this card game look really engrossing. You get your dramatic final hand, you get your shootout, you get your plot twist, you get the con within the con within the con all playing out, and in fact you get about 3 different endings, each one revealing a different layer to the con that was underway. The story managed to cover pretty much everything you expect to see in a Western. Card fights, bar fights, shootouts, bandit camps, Indians, stagecoach chase or stunts, riverboat, someone getting hung, and the old-time music playing in the background. Ding ding ding, 10 in, we have a winner. Yeah, it was a fun time. The story was a fun time. It's cheesy, it's hokey, but it seemed to really enjoy the fact that there was a Western. The story gets a 3. Look and feel. Okay, when the movie starts, it feels old. Straight up, it looks old, it feels old, the sound's old, the video's old, feels like a 90s DVD. Takes you around about 40 seconds, I'd say, to get used to that, and then you don't notice anymore and you don't care. Nice scenery, nice settings, beautiful shots of the landscape. Looks really hot, looks very dry. It's got that 90s Disney sound and score playing in the background for most of it, which really does just throw you back and remind you when this movie was made. All the shots they use, all the camera work they employ in this tell the story very easily. Even in the complicated scenarios and sequences where the camera's jumping back and forwards between different people at the poker table, it flows very well. Mind you, every now and then this movie Joe goes, "Hey everyone, this is a Western!" And they show you the most Western of Western shots and angles and scenery and sequences. Like I said before, this movie loves the fact that it's a Western movie. So much of this look and feel plays into how the story develops. Means I've pretty much covered everything from look and feel into the story category. There's no surprises really. There's nothing to make you go, "Oh, that doesn't fit," or "Oh, I wasn't expecting that." Actually, there were 2 occasions where the music in the background was very different to the previous Western music. Slightly more modern, more upbeat sort of sound. I think they put it in there for the pacing of the movie itself. but it was a noticeable change. This movie really leans into its sight gags. It's not quite slapstick, but it's getting there. And all the actors play into it very nicely. Got actors closing fingers indoors, walking to walls, bumping into trees, dropping things, finding things, tripping over stuff, goofing around to accentuate whatever sequence is happening at the time. Even when some of the sound effects get a little cartoony, straight up mixing board pops and boinks, you don't care because you're having fun. But everything in this movie was leading up to the grand finale on the ferry boat for the great poker game, and it was everything you wanted to see. Shots of the cards, of the chips, people cheating and getting busted, people looking smug, people looking sad, all the emotions and all the over-the-top emotions of a poker game. And there is the way that they'll demonstrate the tells in a way that you'd never reveal if you're actually playing a card game. Lets the audience feel smart about being able to track where things are going. Each card table had a small group of stories being played out. You got to follow all these characters that you never knew anything more about on their little poker adventure. And that was kind of fun too. Although it did occur to me that when they chuck the dude overboard and he goes, "I can't swim," they're in the middle of a very wide river, that's probably a death. Welcome to the Old West. They don't tolerate cheats. As I said, there's not much to discuss on this one. It looked good. It did its job. You always feel like you're in a Western. A very, very happy to be here Western. Look and feel gets a 3. Script and dialogue. Well, to begin with, it looked like everyone was having a fun time on set. You can never be sure with behind the scenes stuff and all, but this looks like an enjoyable production. You got your classic mid-movie opening with the hero in jeopardy and leaving you wondering how they got there, followed up by Maverick giving you narration throughout the movie every now and then, as if he's retelling the story to someone else, and that someone else just happens to be you. Each scene and scripting option seems to play into the next one very, very tidily. Either it's very well thought out, or there's exceptional editing going on. Clever little anti-gunfight at the beginning, where Maverick shuts down a hostile gunfighter by basically proving that he could have killed him if he wanted to. The punch-up that followed was quite nice, and watching the main villain, Angel, look less and less sure of himself as Maverick is taken apart 5 goons armed with a variety of weapons. Having Angel totally back down and look quite concerned that he didn't know what the hell he just got himself into was also really well done. And wouldn't have worked if Alfred Molina wasn't such a good actor. They took the time to give us some clever little interplays between Maverick and Annabelle. They didn't really need to do it, but they did, and that was appreciated. The thief and the con artist mentally circling each other like duelists, very effective. The lethal weapon crossover was dumb, and I loved it. However, it did really highlight how many mannerisms Maverick had that were very similar to Martin Riggs. No, actually, it's probably just Mel Gibson doing his thing. Maverick with his trick of putting his hand over the cards and imagining the one he needs. I just thought hard of the cards. And they just have this ongoing list of very funny moments between characters. You've got Cooper and Maverick bantering on the cliff, arguing and fighting, whilst Maverick's hanging off the cliff and needing help to come back up again. You've got Joseph giving Maverick a hard time. You've got Maverick yelling at Joseph, trying to choke him after Joseph pretended to steal all his money and give him a heart attack. Maverick yelling, "You'll be dead and I'll be happy." I've used that line a lot ever since. The bitching and the bickering and the fighting and the back and forth never got old. Always entertaining. Yeah, script and dialogue. It was a fun time. Kept you entertained, didn't pull you out of the movie, and really gave all the actors a lot to work with. I'll go ahead and give this one a 3.5. Okay, fun factor. And as you may have guessed, yeah, I had fun. At no stage of the movie did I feel like this was cringy or too corny or poorly presented. Admittedly, if you're wanting to watch a high-end, high-value production, this ain't it. This is not your Ocean's 11 level of slickness. With all the different scenes, all the different banter, all the physical humor, it was just a good old cards and caper movie. And that's what this was. Nothing super spectacular, light, entertaining, and a good time. 3.5. So add it all together and we get a 16.5. A good time. I do recommend it, as this is definitely one of the better Western comedies out there. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, comment below. And in fact, what's your favorite Western movie? And why? I don't want to see one of these one-word answers. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoy what I do. And as usual, please, everyone have a really good week.